Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Nina Rodriguez and this is Misfit to Teach, where I talk about all things teaching and how to stay mentally, physically, and emotionally fit to teach. If I don't already know you or we haven't spoken in the comments, anything like that, please join our growing community of teachers and student teachers and education thought leaders by hitting the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you and I can come together every week. So it's a bit of a different day today. I'm actually just filming from my living room when I was unexpectedly turned around this morning and was told to go home. Everything's fine, career-wise, that wasn't the issue. It's just apparently and unfortunately in our district there was a threat that was made which seemed to come across as serious enough to warrant closing down the schools in our district. So that's where I am today. And of course, when I got home and threw down my bags and, was just completely flabbergasted and changed my clothes and then sat down, that's when I realized, oh, I should definitely, this is a great opportunity to film a video now that I'm in an old fundraiser t-shirt and some lumpy sweatpants. So since I'm home today on the basis that a threat was made, I think I just want to take some time in this video to remind everybody, in case you didn't already know, our kids are absolutely crazy. They've lost their minds. And I say that with the utmost love and respect. Obviously, I don't think that our kids are psychotic. They haven't, they're I guess they're not crazy in the clinical sense, but some of them could be. That's within the realm of possibility at this point. But I think the most concerning thing is that as we move through education, as we venture further and further into the 21st century, as one school year rolls into another, I'm finding that these things are becoming more and more common, to the point that they seem to be perceived as cliche or even boring, or at worst not to be taken seriously. And so before we go any further, in our conversations, I think today's video is more dedicated toward the mentally fit to teach aspect of what I do here, and in a literal sense, the physically fit to teach aspect. I mean, I want you to stay alive. I want you to stay physically well. I want you to stay mentally well. I want you to have longevity in your career, in whatever capacity you are in education. But you can't do any of those things if you are not taking the steps to protect yourself, to protect your school community, and to protect your own well-being in the event of a crisis. I think the number one thing that we can do, without question, across the board, no matter what district you're coming from, because it doesn't matter what district you're coming from, right? Mental health is a national focus right now. The mental well-being, the social conditions in which our kids are growing up, these are a part of a much bigger conversation, a bigger crisis in education on a national scale. So I know, and I feel comfortable in talking to you because I feel like in some way this does resonate with you. I'm positive that stuff like this has happened or may be happening in your district, maybe with deferring regularity from our district, but still I know that you understand where I'm coming from, because in some capacity you had to have dealt with it by now. And that is the concern that if a student makes a threat, believe them. That's not to say that sometimes kids just say crazy, out there, nonsensical things because they're blowing off steam, and how they are. So they really just have no filter, and the filter they have is completely unreliable. But we have to hold our students to account now more than ever, because we're living in a time where accountability is falling by the wayside. Accountability is a dying quality. And when students or disgruntled staff in your school, or angry, bittered community members are making threats that you know about, or that you have information about, it's in your best interest, as well as your school communities, to report that right away. Sometimes we say to ourselves, well, I know this student really, really well. We have a great relationship. He says crazy things all the time, or, sometimes she just flies off the handle. I let her blow off steam. It's one thing to blow off steam. It's another to be issuing threats against people. If you know that a student or a community member is making threats against your school or your school district or somebody in the school, you have a personal and professional obligation to report that every single time. And I don't want to say these things to frighten you or cause you to be, hyper vigilant, but just think about all of the stories that we hear nowadays. That they come with more and more frequency of students or former students doing terrible, unspeakable things in schools where they were once a student, or in places where they just know there's going to be a lot of people. And what frustrates me about a lot of those cases is that there's always somebody, or there's always several people tailored within that story, within that student's frustration, within that case, where they had an idea of what was happening and they didn't do enough, or they didn't do anything at all. I just think we have we have an obligation to work together to ensure each other's peace of mind. And we can't do that if we're hiding information or we're trying to give students the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes it's not our place to give the benefit of the doubt, especially when giving the benefit of the doubt could mean putting the majority in danger. So once again, I say all this to say, if you know that somebody is struggling in your school or in your school district, if you know or even get the sense that they could become a threat, or they're making threats, please report that. It could, even if it's to your administration, if it's to counselors, if it's to law enforcement, please get others involved, not so that we can necessarily press charge and attack this person, but so that we can appropriately envelop them in services and much needed attention to address a crisis before it happens. We're sitting at home today because a threat was made, and our leadership absolutely made the right decision. And I hope your leadership would do the same. As always, if you have a personal story that's pertinent to what we're talking about today, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd love to, know more about your experience, or know more about how you believe in handling things. It's important to keep the conversation going. Just remember to keep it respectful. As always, do all you can to stay fit to teach, and I'll see you next time, hopefully not from my living room. Be well.